Well, welcome everyone to the Taraxa Live AMA in December. And today we're going to do something a little bit different. So I'm sure all of you are kind of sick to hear just from me. So we have the engineering team, part of the engineering team here on the line, who are going to be answering the bulk of the questions today and discussing our recent mainnet reset and the progress that we've been making towards native token conversion and broader ecosystem adoption. So yeah, let's do a quick round of introductions. Justin, why don't you start first?
Yeah, so I'm Justin Snap, and co-founder of Taraxa with Steven. We go way back into our college days together, and kept in touch ever since then. And of course, since we launched Taraxa, we've been working very hard together to make this dream a reality.
All right, Leo, you want to introduce yourself? Yeah.
Hello, I'm Leonard. I work as an ecosystem engineer here at Taraxa. I've been working with Taraxa for some time now. So I'm mainly in charge of all the ecosystem applications here at Taraxa.
Yeah, if you guys ever hang out in our Discord channel, asking me any question is kind of useless. You got to go ask Leonard. He's the guy that fixes all everyone's problems.
I don't know how long you've been working with us, Leo, but it feels like such a long time because, you know,
Yeah.
the pace of everything is really accelerating as we go forward. It just gets faster and faster. So much has happened in the time you've been with us. And I think it actually, of course, is starting to be quite a long time now. So
yeah, it's like over 2 years now, right?
yeah. But it's like a lifetime within the Taraxa roadmap. And
that's a lifetime in crypto too. So
yeah.
All right.
In crypto.
All right. So we have a few topics that we like to cover, and then we'll go to the AMA portion. So for those of you that are watching live, because this is on YouTube, feel free to enter your questions. And we also have received a bunch of questions over Twitter, so we're going to answer those at the end as well. All right. So just to kick it off, you know, the primary topic that we're talking about today is really the mainnet candidate release. So what is this, right? So what exactly is the mainnet candidate? And what is the goal, right, of having a mainnet candidate? So the first time we released the mainnet candidate was actually last year, the end of last year, December 31st, 2021. And the reason why we have these mainnet candidates is really for several purposes, right? The first one is to establish a technical baseline upon which we can start to make improvements and fixes and conduct our stress testing. This is very, very important because we need like a stable version that's going to persist for a very, very long time. A very, very long time, meaning months and months at a time, right? So the test net gets reset once every several weeks. The mainnet is meant to stick, candidate is meant to stick around for a very long time so that we're able to observe long-term behaviors and make longer term decisions. So that's the first one, is very technical. The second one is that we need something so that we can encourage the community to get into the habit of actually delegating their staked Terra tokens. This is obviously very important for not just the ecosystem itself, but the overall economics of the entire network. So this is something that we want to make sure that the community is familiar with and is used to doing once the token conversion actually comes and we actually have native tokens on the Taraxa network. And the third one is, you know, also extremely important, is that this is having a mainnet candidate version because it's something that doesn't really get reset that frequently. It acts as a basis for us to speak to exchanges to conduct the native token conversion. So this is the version, the mainnet candidate version is the one that the exchanges are going to conduct their tests on. And it's also the version that, you know, the audit firm, Halborn, the firm that we work with, who just released a report a few weeks ago, that they're going to look at as well. So it's a good way, it's a good tool and a good version to use for external, you know, collaborations and external testing. Yeah. All right. So let's go to the next topic. Maybe both Justin and Leo can chime in on this. So How is the current mainnet candidate different, like than the one that we released last year at the end of last year, December 31st? Maybe we start with, what are the new features, for example? Justin, I think you're muted.
Sorry, I muted because I pulled up the stream and I wanted to see that. But yeah, that's a question we get asked a lot, is what's the difference between the new mainnet candidate and the original mainnet candidate? And this one's really the one that's ready for prime time. So one of the main things we've done is we've added a lot of features. So the biggest, probably fundamental thing that was missing from our initial mainnet candidate, which really focused on showing the protocol design and the functionality of it and the stability of it, is that we have added the on-chain economics, right? So that's vital to having a true mainnet, that you capture the economics of the blockchain and not just the block production, transaction production work. So we've thought through the economics and we've implemented the economics in code natively in the ledger, and we think we have good economics established there. So next one is, wait, am I not hearing? Were you talking, Stephen? Okay, all right. So then the next major thing I think we added is that I would say we added is GraphQL integration within the node. And that's really important for ecosystem to be able to connect to the node and understand what's going on in the ledger. Obviously, our revised Explorer is going to be driven off of that, but it's very important for interaction with the ledger. We think that that's a great way to interact with the ledger. Another huge thing we did is we hardened the network against malicious attacks. So our original mainnet candidate was very functional under the assumption that everyone who was participating in consensus, which are the delegated stakeholders, are not malicious. But of course, that's not robust enough for a true mainnet candidate that's going to handle real economics and have real tokens. So we had a lot of things that had been deferred to harden against malicious attacks. We also thought through things a lot more in detail and made changes and implemented things that are needed to be able to handle malicious users trying to participate in consensus, and also do denial of service attacks and things like that. And then lastly, performance. We have much higher throughput just from code optimization, few consensus changes and whatnot, and also it's much more stable, so it can handle, first of all, nodes don't crash like they used to crash occasionally, and also when nodes do crash, we have much better recovery from those crashes. And another area that we did a lot of work on was stress testing. So both on the mainnet and in the testnet, we were able to do a lot of really good stress testing with the help of all the people that have been volunteering, participating in running nodes. So we use stress testing in the testnet and in DevNet and mainnet to identify performance bottlenecks and stability issues. So it's interesting, of course, all these things tie in together, right? So once we started trying to filter out malicious attacks, then we had to avoid having any kind of false positives with like syncing behavior or nodes disappearing and going offline, coming back online. We also had a lot of great help sort of indirectly and intentionally in having people run the wrong version of the node within the network and making sure that we didn't have any problems with that, or trying to sync with wrong versions, wrong Genesis blocks, or people changing their configs, things like that. And then lastly, one of the things that we use stress testing to really improve was partition recovery. So in our previous mainnet candidate, we didn't really worry much about partition recovery. So if you had the network partitioned either in an idealistic way of two halves, or a bunch of nodes that get confused, or if just the entire network got halted due to some bug and then got reset, we were able to recover, but we were slow to recover. And so now we have nearly instantaneous partition recovery added in there. And then the last area that is critical to making this mainnet really ready for prime time is that we went ahead and completed a security audit with Halborn, which is a audit company that we can talk a lot more about. And they did a very thorough audit. It's a highly reputable company. They've worked with lots of other projects, like let's see, who have they worked with? Avalanche, Polygon. Who else have they worked with? Let's see. Can you remember, guys? Off the top of my head, I don't want to say something that's inaccurate. But they worked with lots of reputable companies.
Yeah, like Dapper Labs. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that was a really great experience. As a matter of fact, we're going to have an upcoming joint AMA. I think it's been scheduled for. Do we have the day it's been scheduled for? It's early in the new year, right? So after the
I think there was like a video that was recorded. I think they're gonna publish it actually soon. I just got word from them. Yeah. So there's also gonna be a Twitter Spaces with them. We're still scheduling that one. That's probably gonna be next year. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was really great because, obviously one of the challenges in having an audit done is that, only we truly know the ledger in the level of detail that you might desire if you were doing a really detailed audit. But they were really easy to work with, and it was really easy for us to help transfer that knowledge to them. And they also brought a really good perspective of looking at, security risks from not just from a consensus standpoint, but from a coding analysis standpoint, of course, and also like denial of service and sort of systemic attack vectors. And so they did a very thorough audit. They helped identify things that we hadn't really focused on as needing to be fixed. And also they kind of reminded us about things that maybe we deferred fixing that should be fixed. So that's available for anyone to go look at and read. And I would encourage people to go look through that. And I think, Leo, you can talk about some of the ecosystem integration sides of things, right?
Yeah, sure. As you said, I think the biggest thing since the last release was the new economics contract. And that kind of opened up the door for us to actually decentralize the node running and delegation rewards on the community side. So that's, I think, the first major feature that that these changes pushed in on the community side. And I guess the second thing was the GraphQL endpoint. So that was pretty important, both for us internally and externally, I guess, for other people that write apps for the Taraxa chain, because on top of the new GraphQL endpoint for the node, we built a brand new explorer that will be launched soon. And yeah, with the help of, I guess, the GraphQL endpoint, other companies or users can start building more complex apps on the Taraxa chain. Because, for example, the problem we had in the past with our Explorer was we had to sync every block transaction and then display it. But now we can just connect directly to the node and get that data in real time. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, and I guess the other thing is we try to make the node more compatible with Ethereum tools like, I don't know, MetaMask, by changing the chain IDs, by working on the gas estimations and stuff like that. So, for example, from what we've tested, now the node works well with MetaMask, with all the Ethereum development tools like Truffle, and yeah, it's easier now to get started developing on our chain. So yeah, I think those are like the major things that have been happening on the ecosystem side lately.
Yeah, and compatibility is, I'll just add that compatibility is something we're also working to improve even further here. Obviously, just because you reach mainnet candidate doesn't mean, or even once you reach mainnet, doesn't mean there won't be improvements. So there's going to be a lot of improvements going forward, and there's still a little bit of work to be done to improve the compatibility with the entire Ethereum ecosystem. But fundamentally, we're compatible. We're very compatible, in fact, and we want to be 100% compatible because we've worked very hard from a architectural design standpoint to make sure that we could be compatible. Superset really of functionality compared to Ethereum.
Yeah, and I think that decision was made actually right at the very beginning of the project, right? I think honestly, thinking back to 2018, 2017, every single layer one came out as quote unquote the Ethereum killer, which even at that time doesn't make any sense to me, as it didn't make any sense to me today. This is blockchain, this is crypto. I think all ecosystems have a role to play in terms of finding their specific application niche, that we should all work together rather than trying to kill each other. There's no one network, a single network that has enough capacity or should have enough capacity to take up the entire decentralized application space. So yeah, we take compatibility with Ethereum very, very seriously. It was designed at the very, very beginning.
Yeah, I mean, it was we worked hard to make a smart contract compatible DAG layer approach for blockchain, and that really was a unique challenge that we took on, and gives our network unique properties and then of course we added on top of that the instant finality through PBFT, and of course really there aren't any other DAG projects that are proof of stake, so that's another when we were starting our ledger, that was another major design consideration. Yeah. But it's going way back to where we were. Maybe we should talk about where we were back in the day. Maybe we should talk about what's next and why it's important.
Yeah, so coming back to the topic at hand, which is the current mainnet update. So there are a lot of people, I think, in the community asking, why should we even care about this current mainnet update? Why is it important? What does it mean, right? Like, so yeah, what do you guys think?
Well, it's a major milestone. I mean, of course, we're in the business of saying that we've reached major milestones, and we've reached a lot of milestones, but this one's by far the biggest milestone that this project has ever reached, because this is when it starts to get really real, right? So fundamentally, it means we can apply for token conversion with the exchanges, and that's far and away the most important part, right? So we can move from having a Terra token that is conceptual and held in a ERC20 contract over in Ethereum, to actually having a token that is run through our mainnet ledger, right, on our ledger. And lastly, I would say it's important because it really completes our technical vision of this project, right? I jokingly was saying to my wife, naivety is kind of bliss, right? Because if you knew how complicated and challenging something would be, maybe you wouldn't start it, right? So this was a complex vision that we had, and it's taken a lot of work to realize, but we really have now completed our vision of the ledger we wanted to build. We have the on-chain economics, we have high throughput, we have very low latency for transaction inclusion, for data anchoring and things like that. And of course, we have instant finality. So it's very, very important that we achieved all those goals and have that working in a ledger now. I think, Stephen, maybe you should talk about why token conversion is important. I mean, I can talk about that from a technical standpoint, but I think it's important that, since we're trying to say why is this important to the average viewer, maybe you should highlight that.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone in crypto obviously would know that one of the special things about blockchain is not just its immutability, and its its immutability and its like anti-centralization kind of properties. I think one of the most interesting things about it is that it's actually able to carry economic incentives in the code. And that was something that really attracted me to blockchain as well, is that it's actually able to spread on its own in many, many ways if the economics are actually done correctly. So because the Terra token is the embodiment of, I would say, value for the ecosystem, it's very important that we actually bring this token onto the primary layer, right? The actual Taraxa network. So it is able to actually be that embodiment of value of the ecosystem. And having that in place really enables us to do a lot of other things, right? It starts to make sense to actually putting our own applications on top of it. It starts to make sense to actually talk to some of the partners that we've been working with, and this obviously attract new developers onto the ecosystem to actually develop on top of it. So it actually enables us to actually take a very important first step towards becoming a real ecosystem, because now the value is actually being bound within the network. So yeah, so it's very, very important. Blockchains, at the end of the day, are economic systems more than anything else, I think, more than technical systems even. So yeah, having this economic factor being fully realized on a network, which is exactly what token conversion is about. Yeah, that's basically what it's about.
Yeah, I guess token conversion is transferring people valuing the Taraxa coin on the basis of what they think about our project and what they think it will be in the future, to establishing it as being a value for using the ledger and doing real stuff on our ledger. And of course, we all got busy writing a ledger because we wanted to enable real things to happen on it. So that part's going to be very exciting to see, all the things that we achieve on chain.
Okay. Yeah, all right. So I think we're gonna try to answer some questions that we've actually just seen the past month or so that people are talking about inside our communities. We've seen these sort of frequently enough that I think we don't need someone to ask it right now for us to be able to address it. I guess the first one everyone keeps talking about is what after token conversion happens, or even before, right? What is the overall strategy to drive adoption in the ecosystem? And this is something that I'll address directly. I think this is something that I've talked about quite a bit because it's been asked quite a bit, in our social media, groups on Telegram, on Discord, and on Twitter as well. So fundamentally, I and especially the entire team, we believe that blockchain technology needs to be used to solve useful problems, right? So the primary way that we're actually going to promote the underlying infrastructure is to try to promote applications that are being built on top of it, right? So we ourselves are building applications. Right now, we're currently focused on social applications that make use of a decentralized social data that's collected in a decentralized way and analyzed in a decentralized way. Now, the decentralization might not have started at the beginning, but that's exactly the goal. The idea is that we can leverage all this data into automated mechanisms, right? So into things like, the first application we're going to have is Hype, which is going to be used by Web3 projects to actually hype themselves up on social media without having to worry about bots and scammers and bounty hunters, and actually be able to identify the people that are actually talking about your project and making a difference in the communities outside of your own, right? Because if you want to get known, you want to advertise in communities outside of your own. So it's almost like running an automated bounty without having to worry about the spam bots ruining your social bounty. And I think that's very important application for everyone in Web3. And I think it's an example of how we can use decentralization to couple with analytics to really make informal social data highly trustworthy. Trustworthy enough that it can be automated, right? This activity hitherto had been done in a very manual manner, right? People had to review these things manually. So we have other applications based on social data that in the pipeline as well, but this is the first one that we're going to release. So coming back to how do we drive adoption? Well, we drive adoption by first driving adoption of this application. I think only when people can actually see and touch and use and understand the benefit of critical applications on the platform, will people start saying, hey, I think it's worthwhile to start paying attention to the underlying infrastructure. I think blanket advertisements or on a layer one or on any kind of technology, I think without any sustainable application is ultimately an unsustainable strategy. I think a lot of projects in the space have tried that. We've tried it early, much earlier in the project as well. So you need to have a live application that people can use and touch and see value in, for them for that traffic and interest to be sustainable, right? And I also understand. I just want to make sure I understand why everyone's asking this type of question constantly. We are in a bear market, and I think a lot of people are getting, understandably, I think people are getting, a little bit anxious, right? So I think I just want to say that this market, it's highly cyclical, right? So I think we will be pushing for the adoption of the application and eventually the layer one, but overall, I think the overall activity of the entire crypto ecosystem as a whole is really driven by cycles. So I guess everyone hanging there. Yeah, I guess the second thing is that once we start to develop some attention or gain some attention around our applications, I think it's going to be time for us to start pushing out the APIs for our underlying decentralized platform to collect this type of social data, as well as to start promoting more the layer one infrastructure for others to build on top of. Talking to a lot of other layer ones, and also observing what's happening in the market, I think it's very reasonable for layer ones alternative layer ones. When I say alternative, I mean layer ones that are not Ethereum, basically, to actually work in conjunction with Ethereum to actually handle a lot of the higher frequency traffic, for example, from layer ones such as Ethereum. And I think that's a very legitimate use case. That's actually what most other layer ones are not Ethereum doing. I think that's something that will happen naturally, but of course it's going to be a use case that we're going to demonstrate and drive adoption for very aggressive as well, beyond the use cases around informal data as well as social data that we build ourselves. Okay. Well, since we're talking about adoption, how does the development, how does the ledger development itself, support adoption from a technical perspective? Yeah. What do you guys think?
Yeah, so we definitely have some planned work to do to make it even easier for people to adopt running Taraxa nodes and to participate within the network, right? So one of the main things is we have a light node implementation, and we want to do some additional work on that to make the node lighter and more cost efficient for people to operate as a node runner to participate in consensus. In order to participate in consensus, you don't need to be running like a full archival node in the in our future vision. Right now, that's something we've been working on and we've made a lot of progress on. We also want to have fast sync. That again makes it easier to operate a node. Right now, the time to sync the mainnet is not horrific, but of course it's only going to grow. So we really want to make sure that doesn't start to become a barrier to people participating in the network. And then also just some further stress testing to make it more stable and secure. We have had some interesting reports from some people running nodes that they had some issues that we're trying to maybe track down what they're experiencing. But in general, obviously it's very stable and secure right now. So had no reports of security problems, just stability problems for random node runners. But I think the main two are really the light node and the fast syncing, because we don't want running a node to be a barrier to adoption, to participation in the network, both from an application side and from someone trying to participate on the consensus side.
Cool. Maybe this question is more for Leo. So on the ecosystem side, so I think Justin just covered from the ledger side of things how we're going to, from a technical perspective, drive adoption. From the ecosystem and tooling side, what are your thoughts, Leo?
The next step, as we talked about earlier, I guess, is to start building APIs and SDKs over our ledger to help people start building real applications on top of it. Yeah, I think that's the biggest step that we can take towards adoption and the compatibility layer. But that's for now. I guess we don't have any problems on compatibility with the Ethereum side. So yeah, that's kind of, I guess we have to start building SDKs and APIs over all of the ecosystem applications and the ledger. Yeah.
I would also add from the application standpoint that having deployed our initial applications like Hype on the ledger, we think that those are really going to be critical to nucleating, surrounding applications, right? So my vision of blockchain is generally one in which you want to have surrounding applications participating on the same ledger, right? So applications like Hype, we're going to be working to decentralize those fully, right? But they also lead back to having a bunch of data that's useful and relevant to other applications that people could build. And so that's going to nucleate, I think, a lot of extra activity and on-chain interactions on Taraxa, because people are going to be coming to Taraxa for that data and to witness that data and to use that data in their own applications.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, sounds great. I'm gonna go on to Twitter. So anyone who's watching right now, feel free to typing any questions into the YouTube live stream. And also if you're on Twitter, feel free to reply right now. So not too late to ask questions. Get your questions in. There are already a few questions that people are asking, so I'll just go through some of these. All right, so here's one that's being asked by Kolos Rodosky. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. What is your closest goal to achieve besides waiting for exchange to answer? Okay, so I'll take that one. So first of all, we're not just sitting around waiting for the exchanges, right? So we're doing obviously a lot of engineering work. We're doing a lot of ecosystem related work on the application as well as on the ledger. But the closest sort of milestone that we want to do besides the token conversion, which right now is at the step of collaborating with exchanges, is really the app launch, right? So we've been spending quite a bit of time developing the underlying infrastructure for social data gathering right now over Telegram, as well as the Hype application, which helps Web3 teams conduct social campaigns automatically, right? Without the manual labor and the headaches of being bound by bots, which I think any team who has run any social campaign in the space is very painfully aware of, right? So so that's the app launch as well as the token conversion. These are two of our priorities, right? All right. Next question, PBJB. How scalable is Taraxa? Okay, so this is kind of interesting question. I mean, I think this question should go to Justin and Leo, but let me preface this by saying that scalability has not been our top focus, right? I think that's pretty fair. Our top focus has been security and stability, right? Trying to make sure that the network is secure and trying to make sure that it runs in a very predictable way. So that has been our focus. I think my understanding is that there's still a large room actually for improvement that we're aware of. But anyway, I'll throw that to you guys. Maybe Justin can talk about our current scalability and maybe our roadmap for scalability and performance.
I mean, there's lots of ways to define scalability, right? So one of the things that I think we've worked hard to do is to make a very performant network without doing things like sharding, right? Or side chains or things like that. So to have a single ledger that is inherently itself very high throughput and high performance, and in terms of amount of transactions it can execute, but also in terms of the amount of people that can participate in that network. So to run our node is pretty lightweight and getting even lighter. Obviously there's no proof of work, so in that sense it's very scalable. The throughput we have right now is in the thousands of TPS, and we know the changes and optimizations that we need to make in order to get that up by a couple orders of magnitude, probably, if you really wanted to, right? Without sacrificing security, but maybe sacrificing a little bit, the amount of people that would be able to participate in consensus. So, I think we're pretty happy with where we are, and we want to, we can improve it just on a purely technical level without adding, new layers of complexity to really achieve massive scalability in terms of the amount of transactions and data that's being processed. I think you look at things like dank sharding and other approaches like that, or ZK rollups, things like that, to add to the ledger. But I think the ledger is quite scalable. We have a roadmap to scale it a little bit more, and then of course we have all those things we'd love to add to make it super scaled, so to speak. But scalability is not something that we see as being the biggest bottleneck to success or adoption. If you're Ethereum, maybe it's a big pain point, right? But in our case, we think we've achieved a very scalable network. It's interesting. Steven, you'll remember this. We made a lot of changes to the EVM to make it able to handle huge numbers of transactions in these sort of mega blocks that we derive in our PBFT layer, and we took that to the Ethereum folks, and we're saying, hey, this is an interesting research task. You guys would be interested in that, and you can tell Steven what their answer was.
Yeah, I mean, okay, yeah, that was a while ago. Yeah, so I think their answer at the time was that they're focused on the beacon chain. I think that's 100% of the focus at the time. So anyway, I mean, Ethereum is, I think Vitalik has made this point over and over again that the Ethereum main chain is not really meant to be fast or low latency or anything like that. And he's basically offloading that task to all the layer 2s that are happening in the Ethereum ecosystem, right? So, and I'm pretty sure also we will benefit from that as well, since we are backwards compatible with Ethereum. I think any kind of layer 2 that takes place on Ethereum would could also work on Taraxa without any problems. So that's another benefit of actually being a participant in the ecosystem, in a larger crypto ecosystem, rather than trying to quote unquote kill everyone else, right? So I think that's the early architectural decisions we've made are going to be paying dividends.
More diplomatically, I would summarize basically they were saying that they had so many other bottlenecks to scalability in Ethereum that they weren't worried about Ethereum, the EVM, even though we spent a lot of work to figure out ways to make that able to handle huge blocks of transactions. But I would definitely echo your point. I think a lot of the what I would kind of call super scaling approaches for a blockchain are still somewhat at the sort of research level, right? Or it's not totally clear about their viability from industrial realization. So I totally enjoy seeing all the work that other projects are doing on that, and we've dabbled and thought about it ourselves, but it hasn't been our primary focus because I think we've built a really good underlying infrastructure to put that stuff on top of, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I just want to echo something that you mentioned before, and this is very interesting, is that whenever people talk about scalability, I think in layer 1s, they always talk about, look at our awesome new consensus, right? But the interesting thing about if you look at the Ethereum architecture is that even if you take the Ethereum chain and like radically change its consensus in some ways to make it faster, very quickly you start seeing that the EVM becomes a huge bottleneck. This is to your point, to what Justin just said, is that most people don't talk about this. The people who do build blockchains, if they're serious about it, they should be very cleanly aware of this. So a ton of our work actually went into optimizing, I think, the execution layer, not the interpreter. Obviously, we're not touching that, but the execution layer surrounding the interpreter on the EVM to actually make it so that it can handle massive amounts of throughput without choking, right? So this is a lot of the hidden work, I guess, that the sexy, the not very sexy hidden work that goes through to actually build a modern blockchain. People don't usually talk about. Okay. All right. Let's see. Another question from Dong Bin. When is the final deadline for feedback from the exchange? I'm not exactly sure I understand that question. So we don't really have deadlines for these exchanges from the development side, development team side. We're talking to them every week, trying to make sure that everything is flowing, everything's moving forward. We are on track to getting confirmed dates from them. So we don't set any deadlines for them because we, like we iterated before, is that this conversion process. Now, the conversion process, lots of people have asked about. I mean, I think this might be a good time to talk about it because lots of people are asking about, well, how would the conversion work? After actually, well, maybe Justin or Leo can actually talk about how our conversion works, and I'll actually talk about how I realize how differently our conversion works versus other people, and that's, I think, has been a source of confusion. I think, yeah. So maybe you guys can talk about how our conversion actually works. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe Leo, you want to chime in?
I can take this one. Okay, so right now the Terra token is an ERC20 token on Ethereum. So once we have a confirmation from the exchanges that we can start moving everything to our own ledger, we're gonna pause the Ethereum contract, and that means it can't execute any transactions anymore. And we start a new network where in the Genesis block, in the first block, we actually add all of the balances from the ERC20 contract. So we're basically starting with all of the balances from Ethereum, and we're pausing the Ethereum contract. So there's no confusion. That's basically how we are planning on doing it, which is a bit different from other projects. This, I guess we could also talk about the bridge stuff, but when we start working on the bridge, we will probably have another token on Ethereum that will represent Terra. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think I want to emphasize, to echo what Leo said, I want to emphasize the advantages of our approach. Basically, the advantage of our approach is that the end users need to do absolutely nothing, right? If you're somebody who actually has Terra tokens, you don't need to do anything. I mean, I see this question being asked all the time. It's like, what do I need to do to prepare for the conversion? Well, nothing. You don't need to really do anything. There's no portal to go exchange your tokens. There's no fees you need to pay. There's no complicated anything to follow. The only thing you really need to do is go into your wallet and switch the network to the Taraxa network, and you're done. That's it. Your address will be the same. Your keys, private keys, are going to be the same. Your balance is going to be the same, and everything will just work. It would just work, right? Just like what Steve Jobs says, it just works. There's no risk. There's no fees. On the exchange side, because what we're building is Ethereum compatible, whatever tools that they've been using for Ethereum, they can keep using. All they need to do is change a few parameters like network ID and RPC server, and pretty much that's it. They don't really need to do anything else. So this actually is a very secure, very easy a way for us to do the conversion. Now, how other people are doing the conversion, as we're starting to learn, is that they actually require users to actually exchange the tokens, right? So now there are lots of problems, I think, with that approach, right? The first problem is that exchanging tokens requires building a bridge, right? And I think layer ones in the past have been very keen on building their own bridges, and we've all seen, how that turned out, right? So there have been more than I can count number of hacks that have been on these very shoddily and quickly, hastily, I think, built bridges. Probably up, billions of dollars have been lost, and it's not a good idea to build a quick and dirty bridge, right? That's not gonna be good. So building your own bridge is not a good idea. So it's insecure. The second thing is that it's expensive, right? You need to pay a lot of fees to do these conversions, right? And the third thing is obviously it's very inconvenient for everybody. There's confusion about what's going on, people can run all kinds of scams on you too, right? Like they can run these phishing campaigns on your conversion portal, and all kinds of crazy things can happen. And it can happen over long periods of time, right? So this the way we're doing it. It happens once, and it's done. Like once for everybody, it's done, right? And it never happens again. So I think there are lots of advantages to the way that to the way that we're doing. Yeah. Hopefully, and then definitely to reiterate, we're going to have lots of guides coming out so that people can understand how they can switch the network on their wallet. We're also going to have our testnet reset periodically, mirroring the ERC20 contract on Ethereum, so everyone can have many chances to actually test it out on their own in their own wallet. Yeah. So that's the reason why we actually have to coordinate with exchanges, right? Because the way that we're actually doing this is that because we're doing this just at one time, right, and never again. If we don't coordinate with the exchanges, then what will happen is that their withdrawals and deposits will be disabled, basically effectively, because the ERC20 contract will be paused. So obviously we don't want that to happen. I think everyone would be negatively impacted by that, so we need to coordinate with them, and so I think so far we're very optimistic about the overall timing and the progress that we're making while talking to the exchanges. Yeah. So, all right. Check out the next question from PBFT General. That's a good name. When will the Taraxa chain blockchain be ready? That's kind of an interesting question. So I think maybe they're talking about token conversion. And to reiterate, right now the last step here is that we're waiting to hear back from the exchanges to set a final timeline on when that token conversion, when they can actually collaborate with us for that token conversion process to happen. So we're waiting on that. We don't know what time they're going to tell us before they tell us what time it is. So we're waiting. We'll keep everyone informed on as soon as we have like a date that has been agreed upon with all the large exchanges that Terra has been listed on. Yeah.
Sorry, maybe you can. I think you already talked about it on some channels, but we got smaller timeline from the exchanges than we did when we talked to them initially. So initially, I think they said like it could take up to a year to integrate the chain. And now I think that timeline is pretty small.
Much less. Yeah. So before, I mean that really ridiculously long time frame was given, I think, during the bull market, right? When I think understandably the number of projects queuing up for not just conversion, any kind of technical services dropped down precipitously. I mean, during the bear market, everything drops down, right? So yeah, we're hearing a much more reasonable time frame from the exchanges these days when we're talking to them. So that's a good reason for optimism. From a technical perspective, I mean, I don't think anyone in the community will want all of us to stop working. And she's like, "Oh, conversion done. We're going to stop working on the blockchain." I don't think that's going to happen, right? There's always more improvements we can make, always more features we can add. So the technical work will obviously keep on going. All right. Okay, another question. Actually, there's a bunch of questions here that talks about marketing, right? And I think I had spoken about that earlier as well. Is that marketing? When we say marketing, we talk about product marketing, right? So we're going to be driving hard for to drive adoption for our products, for our applications, because just plain marketing for a empty project is not effective, has not been effective in our experience, has not been effective from speaking to other projects. Like I said, Taraxa is not a meme coin, right? I mean, I know I'm fully aware that there are lots of coins out there that have no meaningful use whatsoever. And we're not one of those coins. If you want one of those coins, I think there are lots of options out there. Dogs, cats, whatever. Pick your animal, right? That you can participating. For Taraxa, we're driving towards real world usages. We're going to solve real problems, and so to drive adoption for the entire Taraxa ecosystem, requires adoption of at least one application, right? That proves the point that we are solving actual problems, right? So marketing for us is product marketing. Driving adoption for our product is driving adoption for the ecosystem as a whole. Let's see. Another question. Is Taraxa planning some kind of hackathon to attract devs to the Taraxa ecosystem after native conversion? This question is from JLBDP. On the other hand, the Taraxa platform layers, hype, marinate will be accessible to developers in that way. Yeah, I think Leo just talked about, after we have our, applications out, the next step will be releasing APIs and SDKs for everyone to access our application platforms as well as our layer one platforms. In terms of hackathons, yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that makes sense, right? To make sure that we can demonstrate the power, the usefulness, and the ease with which people can actually leverage our technical platform. Hackathons, I think, is a great venue to actually do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we talked about that in the past, hosting hackathons, and maybe our community can even help us with building the APIs and SDKs. That would be a great theme for a hackathon, I guess. Yeah, we'll think about it and keep you updated.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. Let's see. Okay, yeah. So there are a few questions on YouTube, but I think we answered them all. One is from IEXCO talking about attracting devs. Yeah, obviously we need to attract developers. I think having a compelling application that lots of people are using is actually a great starting point to attract developer attention. Running hackathons, having good documentation, getting the word out to developer communities is obviously another tried and true way to actually get the word out. Yeah, so we're definitely going to be doing all of those. Yeah, definitely. All right, I think those are all the questions that we're seeing. And as always, please, we have our Discord channel, www.taraxa.io/discord, as well as our Telegram channel, taraxa.io/tg. You can, as well as Twitter, taraxa.io/Twitter. Please keep in touch through those channels, and we'll be there, keeping everyone informed and making sure that we're working to build out this ecosystem.
Absolutely.
See you guys on Discord, I guess.
All right, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.
Bye.
Everyone, thanks for joining.